Welcome to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM AM 580, and as always, streaming live in the WDBO app. I'm sitting here with Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic himself. His sole purpose today is to answer any and all questions you may have about your car, your truck, your van. Maybe your engine is making a knock when it's supposed to be more a raspy noise. I don't even know if that's the thing, but Larry is not laughing at me yet, so maybe I'm onto something. Oh, here he is.
You're killing me. You're killing me, Josh. You're killing me.
If you had a question for Larry, you want to diagnose your car or do your best over the radio, the number to talk to Larry right now is 844-580-9326. 844-580-WDBO. In just over about 90 minutes, an hour and a half from now, we'll be screening your open mic, so download that free WDBO app. Send us your best 15 seconds, and we'll put you on the air with Larry himself. All jibber-jabber no longer. How you doing today, Larry?
We're doing good. I'm not going to beat up on you too bad. You try so hard, Josh. So that counts for something. Hey, folks, it's a little after 3. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know this is an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems and just about anything mechanical. Old motorcycles, outboard engines, lawn equipment, all is fair game here. And it's been our pleasure to answer your questions for, almost 32 years now. Me personally, I am an automotive shop owner and have been a master auto technician since 1982. Now, to make the program work, we need your calls, darn it. Lines are open at 844-580-9326. That's 844. If you can remember the 844 and the radio station that you're listening to, it's actually pretty easy to remember. So it's 844-580 WDBO, and all you got to do is just give us a ring, and we'll get you all lined up. And remember, all your calls and your car questions get indexed, and they get placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks, searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information. And it kind of is like, if I just answer your question and the show's over, then it's done, But this way, the conversation that we have about your car, it's going to be there for a long time. Think about it. Folks will be able to play back those car questions and get those answers, hear the comments years from now. So we'll be able to help folks, repetitively with the conversation that we have. Dash warning lights, poor fuel economy, oil consumption, AC not working correctly, vibrations, warranty questions, maybe you got a recall notice in the mail, antique and classic car issues. We still got a lot of old vehicles out there, and, a lot of them are carbureted, which I am a carburation expert, when it comes to the older stuff. So if a person's got choke problems, idling problems, cold, any of that carburation-wise, I welcome all those calls. I'm sure I can help you with it. I know every tip and trick there probably is on just about every carburetor there probably was ever made. And I'm talking about going all the way back into the 1930s. So, and we answer your questions on any gas, hybrid, electric, or a diesel vehicle, a lot of power stroke stuff. We have those disaster prevention kits for the fuel systems on those, later model 2011 and up Power Strokes. And if you got one and you don't know about this, you need to really investigate into it. It could save you 10 grand. I'm just telling you point blank. Also, remember, I have a complete database of all the listed recalls and technical service bulletins from all the way to current, which is 2023. And all you need to do is give us a call, 844-580-WDBO. We do have several lines open. just give us a ring and give our producer Josh the year, make, and model of your vehicle and a description of the problem or question, and you'll be placed on a brief hold, and we'll get to your call in the order that it was received. Also remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number, and if JD can't answer it immediately, you can leave a message and we'll give you a call back. Also want to mention the open mic feature. You can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app, and you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, make, and model and the issue that you're having. Now, you need to do this all within about 30 seconds, so you don't have a lot of time. So year, make, and model, and your car question, oil question, AMSOIL question, anything along those lines, and we'll get to those at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Now, you can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry, at magicmechanic.com. I can't guarantee I'll get to them during the show, but if I can't fit them in, I will answer them probably tomorrow or probably right at Monday morning. So we will get to them as quickly as we can. I also have quite a few emails from the YouTube channel. We might try to get to a few of those this afternoon as well. But folks, we do have some open lines. Won't you just hop on board and join us? Football don't start till later on today, so it looks like it's going to rain, cloudy day. May as well just give us a call and sit here and hang out on the Magic Mechanic Show for the next couple hours. 844-580-9326 or 844-580-WDBO. Josh, who are we going to kick the show off with today?
Let's stay here in Orlando, Larry, and let's talk to Tim, who's got something going on with his Volvo. Go ahead, Tim.
Good afternoon, fellas. So I've got a 2011 Volvo S40 T5R Series. My daughter had a front-end collision with it last week. The insurance company's going to total it, but it starts, it goes into gear, it moves under its own power, and I'm contemplating buying it back from Copart when it goes up for auction next week. So before I do, what are the things that I should do, or should I just walk away from this thing that was in pristine condition till I gave it to her?
Hey, it happens, Tim.
Yeah, no, it does. And she's fine. She's not injured, and no one was injured. That's the good news. But the car.
Dads still hate to hear it. You know what I'm saying? We're glad our kids are okay, but we really still hate to hear they just trashed a perfectly good car. It just. How many miles are on the thing, Tim?
151,000.
All right, listen, I'm going to stop you right there. Did the airbags deploy in it?
Did.
Yeah, Tim, I'm going to put it to you like this. You might be able to get a fairly decent deal on it, but it's going to it's going to come back. You're going to wind up with a branded title. It's going to be a total car. You could fix it up. Airbags for that thing are a fortune. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's the biggest reason they total these things out. It's just the airbags are extremely expensive, and then. By the time you piece the whole front end back together and get it painted, and hopefully there's no frame damage, you've got a car, a 2011 vehicle, got over 150,000 miles on it, and you're going to have the repair plus whatever you give for it, and then you're going to have a branded title, so you're not going to be able to sell it for retail when you go to sell the darn thing. It's one of those deals to where I will tell you like this: if you were going to take if it didn't go through the insurance company and you didn't mess with what the settlement money that they're planning on giving you for it, then I'd say go ahead and fix it. At least you could sell it with a straight title, But when you go to selling, a vehicle that old that's been totaled by the insurance company, you're kind of painting yourself into a corner, I think. You might be able to. I would do some serious checking around and see with the money that you got out of it, what you can replace it with. That would probably be my best advice. You know, if it was a 2016 Toyota Tacoma or something like that, I'd say see what you could buy it back for, because people don't care if those have been wrecked or not. they buy them anyway, you know. But with this older Volvo like that, I don't see any blue sky other than if it is a sentimental thing. And if it is, you know, if it belonged to one of your parents that, you know, drove it and passed away or something like that, I can understand that, you know. But if this is just a car you all have had in the family for a long time, and, you know, I know it's kind of hard to do, you know. My oldest son wrecked my daggone Sequoia that had been through me, my wife, and him, and we all loved the vehicle, but it... You know, and I looked at it, and I'm like, I just got to let it go. You know, I was so tempted, but I would have painted myself into a corner with it. It would have been a sentimental thing. And you know, sometimes that happens. But in your case, hey, there's plenties of 2011 Volvos out there for sale, probably with a lot less miles on them than this one. You might even find something a little better. But if you do go that route, I'd just tell you, you know, I have warned you, right?
Yep, I've heard it. You're not the first one to warn me. So.
Oh, jeez, Tim, listen, hey, listen, thanks for the call. It was a great discussion. I appreciate you giving us a ring.
Thank you so much, Tim. That opens up a line for you if you want to hop on with Larry, run some questions by him, let him know what's going on with your automobile, and we will do our best to diagnose it. Mainly, I do all the work, and Larry just sits on the back and
it looks pretty.
Mooches off my greatness. Yeah, he's the pretty one. He's the pretty one of the group here. If you want to call right now with Larry, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Let's grab a quick break. Joyce, Peter, John, Bubba, hang on with us. We'll be right back with you after this break. You're listening to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO. Now is your chance to call. Sitting here with Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic himself. We're taking your calls. Just give me a jingle, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Tell me your year, your make, your model. I'll promptly put you on hold and put you on air with somebody who actually knows what you're talking about. Or download the WDBO app for free in the App Store or Google Play Store and send us an open mic a little over an hour away from the open mic segment. Let's head over to Orlando, where Bubba the Welder is calling today. Bubba, how you doing today?
Hey, all right, Larry. How about you, bud?
Hey, we had a good Christmas, and we had a great New Year and a nice vacation with my granddaughter skiing. How did you do?
Yeah.
You do all right?
Yeah. Did you get a nice Christmas wreath there in the shop?
Yes, and we still have it hanging. I don't know how long we're going to leave it hanging up, Bubba.
Okay.
Do we leave our Christmas wreath hanging until Easter or what?
Yeah, okay. You can redecorate it for Easter and Valentine's Day and with the leprechaun St. Patty's Day.
Okay, all right.
It sounds to me like you guys got off Mammoth Mountain, the Sierra Nevada, just in the nick of time. There's about 5 foot of snow over there right now.
It is. It was. They actually, the place we were at skiing, they actually closed the lifts because it snowed too much. Can you imagine going skiing and they close a resort down because it snowed too much? But I guess what happens is that wet, damp snow will actually pull the electric lines down at the lifts. And they had to go in there and start repairing stuff and everything else. What a mess. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go back to California skiing or not. I think I'm going.
Well, I've only been there about 10 times, Mammoth. I used to ski Big Bear a bunch. One afternoon, I water skied during the day and snow skied that same night.
Yeah, I hear people doing that all the time. Amazing. You could do all that in one state. Bubba, what's going on with this caddy you calling in about?
It was cool. It's a 2014 CTS.
Okay.
And everybody out there in Radio Land, Larry's heard all of the obnoxious noises and sounds, the clicks and the clanks and the booms and the bangs. Well, this one coming up from a stop sign or a red light, go to take back off, spitter, spatter, spitter, spatter, spitter, spatter, spitter, spatter, and get up to speed, and it mellows out again.
Yeah.
And off we go. Fuel problem, fuel pump, and filters in the tank, probably.
Well, yeah, but Bubba, that's not what's going on with it. On that car,
EGR?
No, that one don't have an EGR. Let me tell you what goes on with this. When you start getting misfires on these front wheel drive GM cars, or even some of your rear wheel drive cars, now the best thing to do is probably just give it a good tune up and inspect the coils. See, these are coil over spark plugs. I would do a tune up on it and then see what happens. A tune-up probably won't fix it. I know that sounds counterintuitive to even say that, but the best thing to do is give them a tune-up and see if that takes care of it. If you still have a problem, you've got a problem. See, those are direct injection, and the injectors actually go right into the cylinder, and the fuel is dispersed out of those at about 2,200 pounds of pressure. And what will happen over time, because of the injector being, direct injection in the cylinder itself, all that heat and combustion that takes place in the cylinders will actually start welding the edges and the ends of those injectors over. And what it'll do is it'll restrict those injectors and cause a cylinder to run lean. And if that's the case and a person keeps driving the car in that condition, what winds up happening is the cylinder goes too lean and you wind up burning a valve. And then, of course, the heads have to come off the vehicle, and that being an overhead cam timing chain driven camshaft system, that's a 4-cam motor, so you got 2 cams per cylinder, and so you got a zillion timing chains on it, and it's a big job if you burn a valve. But what happens is people will give them a tune-up, and then they're like, well, that didn't make any difference, and they just keep driving the car. And when that happens, it winds up doing internal engine damage. It'll wind up burning a valve, and the vehicle will have to have a complete valve job, and it's an expensive venture on that one. But if a person catches the injectors, before they actually cause an internal engine problem, my advice would be to give it, set of plugs, look at the coils and the insulators, make sure they look okay. If not, replace them. But, because mileage-wise, it's probably due anyway. That's why I'm saying it's a good maintenance thing, and it might take care of the misfire and the sputtering that's taking place. But if you do that and it still doesn't take care of it, somebody had better find out what cylinder's misfiring and start looking at these direct injectors, because it's real common we get those in on a lot of the GM products, because GM uses that engine in a lot of different cars. And when you get them in, usually the 3.6 motors, and when you get them in like that and they're missing, they'll run lean and they will burn a valve. So make sure you tell them what I said on that, and hopefully it keep them from having a major, major, major expensive repair. Thanks for the call, Bubba. You're always welcome here.
Thank you so much, Bubba. That opens up a line for you to call in today, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. John has been on hold, calling from Orlando. John's got something going on with his Hyundai Tucson. Go ahead, John.
Hi, this is John. I think you got the wrong car, though. I've got 2 cars, an old one and a new one, and I got questions on both. So the old one is a Dodge Durango 2000, which I bought new, and it's got 183,000 miles on it. Runs great, except the transmission, which I believe is the 46 RE, hesitates, and it doesn't shift into second until about 3,000 RPM. And I was just wondering if that's an adjustment or if my training's on its way out.
On that one there, that one's kind of a funny one. It's got an electric part in the transmission. It's called a governor pressure sensor. And that's what regulates fluid pressure at a certain shift, and that's when, those, when they start going bad, will cause these late shifts. Or it may not even shift at all when they go bad. I would put a governor pressure sensor in it just to try it and see. Probably drop the pan. It goes into the valve body. Replace the governor pressure sensor, and then and fill it back up with fluid and see what happens. I mean, there could be in a vehicle that old. I mean, 23-year-old vehicle, anything's possible with the transmission. I mean, that's just that's kind of a given. But the most common thing that will cause that problem is that governor pressure switch. But I try that, fill it back up with fluid, and see what you got. That's the best advice on that one. Now, if that doesn't fix it, then of course, my next step would be to put a pressure gauge on the transmission and drive it, and see what I would be looking for is to see if I have a fluid pressure loss whenever we need to shift. If we've got a fluid pressure loss in there somewhere, then it could be one of the Teflon seals going to the stator part of the front pump. It could be a bad piston seal in one of the clutch drums. I mean, there's a lot of other things. It could be a servo for your band. You actually got a band in that transmission that could have an issue as well. So it would need a fluid pressure test after you've done the governor pressure switch, if you still had the problem. But there's probably a good 80% chance the governor pressure switch will take care of it on that transmission. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just had the filter changed, and I wished I'd have had them do that then. But any chance it could be an adjustment? Because I think there is a band. Well, I think there's two bands, reverse and downshift. And then I've read about a throttle adjustment. So any chance it could be those two before I jump right into the?
I don't. That your throttle adjustment, your throttle valve cable. Only thing that's really doing is creating a downshift on that transmission. That's really all it does. It's not going to really have anything to do with an upshift. If you were to take that cable off, it really wouldn't make any difference on an upshift. So if it's got a delayed upshift, then I'm going to put my money on the governor pressure sensor. Yeah, that's the most common thing that'll cause that problem. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And then my wife's got a brand new Camry, and they say change oil every 10,000 miles. I don't believe that. I want to do it at least every 5,000, and I'd like to do the oil that it calls for, which is 0 W16. But it seems I've heard you really rant on the zero weight oil, so I thought I would check with you before I put any of that in there.
Well, I'll put it to you like this, John. I've got this mountain bike that I get out and I try to ride it like once a week, just for some cardiovascular exercise. And I wouldn't put the 016 on its chain for lubrication. It's not sufficient for a bicycle chain. Why they would tell you to put it in an engine is just so stupid. I'm like, from a mechanical point of view, I'm like, well, you may as well just go into your cupboard and pull out some Wesson cooking oil. It's probably got more viscosity than a 016 oil. I mean, it is the dumbest thing that has ever been stated in the automotive industry in my lifetime. It's stupid. It's stupid. They do this in order to try to squeak just a little tiny bit more fuel economy out of an engine, and the trade-off is not worth it. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. Toyota's really been pushing this now for a little while, and folks are taking these back to the dealer, and you can listen to these engines. Just open your hood and listen to the motor. I mean, you hear all these little noises and ticks and everything else going on. The motor's just starving for oil, even though it's got oil in it. There's no viscosity to this oil. There's nothing there to keep parts separated. It's just sitting there beating itself to death. Going to be real lucky to get 80,000 miles out of these engines. I mean, that's just a given. There's nothing there to keep parts separated. There's not enough viscosity to make things slide and build pressure between parts. There's just no viscosity there. And you know, they can sit there and tell you anything they want. Oh, it's just new motor. It's got higher oil pressure. It's all BS. It's none of this. It's ridiculous what they're doing. And folks are paying premiums for these cars, and they're not going to get any service life out of them. The motors are not going to, if they're making payments on them, they're not, the car's not going to last until it's paid for. This is really a sad shame. We get vehicles like that in that's got this 16 weight oil in it, and we go and we put the AMSOIL 0W30 in them, and I'm telling you, it completely changes the entire personality of that car. The motor is smooth. It's got more power. The fuel economy goes up, all because you don't have all this friction. You actually are putting lubrication in the motor. You know, and then, you know, you got to look at it like this. We use the AMSOIL, and we're only changing it once a year every 15,000 mile. You know, if you run 16 weight oil, you could change it every 1,000 mile, and it's not going to make any difference because the oil can't lubricate the motor properly. It's just going to sit there and eat itself alive. I mean, cylinder wall wear, oil consumption. When you use an oil that is that thin, your piston rings can't even seal. There's not enough oil there's not enough viscosity on the piston rings. So what happens is compression starts blowing right past the rings. You know, I understand why the manufacturer's trying to do this to make the EPA happy, but what's crazy about it is you use the 030 AMSOIL, which is 10 times the oil of any 16 weight, and literally all these things. The motor smooths out, it runs better, there's more power, the fuel economy goes up. It's like they're intentionally trying to kill your car, and I don't understand that. You know, I mean, you know, I've got Toyota, you know, recommending 16. You got a crazy mechanic on the radio telling you 030. You're going to have to come to a realization on who you're going with here. I've probably built more engines than whoever recommended 16 weight oil. I'll put it to you like that, you know, but there's just no reason for it. And then people sit there and, you know, I'll have machinists and old mechanics, you know, retired guys that are in their 80s and 90s, and they ask me questions, you know, they're like, Larry, why are they coming out with all these stupid, really low viscosity oils? And I'm sitting there going, I think it is just a master plan to make these engines fail. You know, Toyota getting tired of these daggone cars lasting 40 years. But, you know, it's like this. From a machinist standpoint, rod and main bearing clearances in an engine, let's say back in the mid-60s, was 1/1000. That was the clearance back then. The clearances are still the same today. They haven't changed any. You can't make it tighter because you'll seize an engine up whenever the engine warms up because metal expands. So you can't make it looser, or you're going to have an engine with low oil pressure, and the motor's going to be noisy and it ain't going to last very long. So 1/1000 are the same clearances that we're dealing with today as we were dealing with in 1957, for goodness sakes. So, you know, that has not changed in an internal combustion motor. Those tolerances are still the same. So, therefore, there is, and, you know, back then, what are we using? 40 and 50 weight, straight weight oils to keep parts separated. Oil technology has changed an awful lot, but not to the point where you can use a 016 oil, especially here in Central Florida. You know what? You might be able to get away with this if you're in Michigan or Alaska or someplace in Canada, but anything, especially south of the Mason-Dixon line, where you've got a lot of heat weather-wise, along with an environment in a car like this, 030 AMSOIL. You got the coldest low pour point there is of any oil with a 0. But the only difference is at normal operating temperature, you're going to have a 30 weight viscosity. You know, we're talking about 45, wait a minute. We're talking almost, 48, 49% more engine protection with a 030 versus a 016? That's astonishing when you think about it from a mechanical aspect. John, we do wish you the absolute best with both of these vehicles. Hope the governor pressure sensor helps you on the Durango, and by all means, you got to kick the 016 habit any way you can. I wish you luck.
Well, I thank you. I remembered correctly, and I won't put that in there.
Hey, let me know how that engine sounds once it gets its first dose of the 0W30 AMSOIL.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Joyce, hang on. We're going to come to you right after this break. If you want to hop on with Larry Perry, now is the time to call. 844-580-9326. 844-580-WDBO. Your open mics coming up at 4:35. Leave them for me right there in the WDBO app. More of the Magic Mechanic Show coming up on WDBO app. 844-580-9326 will put you on with Larry Perry, like Joyce calling in from Winter Park. Joyce has got a question about her Subaru. Go ahead, Joyce.
Hi, Larry.
Hey.
Got a quick question. I love my internal combustion engine. Love the guys that can fix them even better. You recommended to me, okay, and you fixed my car. You're in charge of my car. I have been for probably 10 years. But okay, I need to take it to maybe North Carolina, Virginia for a couple of months, and I have AMSOIL in the engine, and I have AMSOIL light in the transmission. The transmission gets a little bit fussy in cold weather, and I'm a little bit concerned about the oil. Am I okay? Should I change the oil? I don't know. It's like, because I have to let it warm up till when the blue light goes out, because otherwise my power steering it doesn't want to turn. Maybe it's a train. Maybe it's a whole different problem. I don't want you to even tell me about that one. But am I overamping about it, or will it be okay? Or
okay, it's Joyce. Listen, if we're servicing the vehicle, that engine is getting 0W30. It's got the 0 is the lowest cold pour point you can get with any oil. That means it's very fluid when it's cold, but as it warms up, it actually increases in viscosity to a 30 weight oil at normal operating temperature.
I wait till the blue light goes out every single time. It's always warmed up.
Yeah.
I don't stress it in that way.
Okay, well that is fine. Even for up north, you're perfectly fine with the 0W30 in the engine. There's no problem with that at all. And that vehicle requires the low viscosity transmission fluid, so that's all good too. The reason that they want that in there, they do make passages a little smaller in that transmission. They want the fluid to flow quickly, and but you're good with all that. Now I am going to tell you this: you don't need to worry about the oil or or what's in the transmission. What you need to be concerned with, if the steering doesn't feel exactly right when it's colder, but it seems to be okay once it warms up. Now, on that one there, I don't think it's electronic steering. I think that one still uses a hydraulic system. And when somebody tells me something like, well, the steering is a little bit stiff when it's cold, you may need the fluid changed in the power steering system. What will happen is, over time, the fluid will start thickening up. And when it does, it doesn't flow like it's supposed to. Power steering services are something people, they don't really think about, and it's often overlooked. So the fluid that's in there is probably 13, 14, probably 14 years old, so it's probably due to be replaced. And just getting the old fluid out and getting some new power steering fluid in there probably help a lot as far as the stiffness that you're encountering, when it's cold in the mornings when you first start up. But you might want to give JD a call on Monday morning and ask him. He can pull up all of your previous services and let him look and see if we have ever done a power steering service on that vehicle where we've actually went in there and probably done a flush and then went ahead and replaced the fluid. If we haven't, then I strongly suggest you do that before you get up north, because if that problem, if you're noticing something here, it's going to probably be twice as bad when you get into colder weather. So those are types of things that needs to be looked at. And the other thing too is, if you are taking it out of Florida and you are going to be going up north, also have him check and see when the last time the cooling system was done as well. and then we could probably go ahead and just check and make sure that the antifreeze strength is good enough to go in, maybe a 10 or 20 below situation. You never know, if you're up in Virginia, it can get extremely cold. So want to make sure we got plenty of freeze protection in the cooling system as well. Joyce, thank you so much for your call, and especially you being a customer. Have a great weekend. Hi, folks. Larry Perry here. For automotive information, maybe you got automotive questions on cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Maybe you're thinking about purchasing a used vehicle, and maybe you just want my opinion. Tune in to the Magic Mechanic radio show every Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. on WDBO.com. Also tune in to our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll all get together, maybe fix a few cars while we're at it.
Give me a call. Give me your year, your make, your model of your car or your truck. Describe your issue in a brief description, and I will pass you along to the expert Larry Perry himself. 844-580-WDBO, about a half an hour away from the open mic segment. So try and get those in. Download the free WDBO app in the Play Store or the Google or the App Store or the Google Play Store, and push the open mic button and send it on. And who knows how we're going to get questions in about 5 years from now, Larry. We keep adapting. We keep finding ways for people to send us your questions.
Yeah, it's it's really funny. I have you said 5 years from now. I've got a cassette of one of the Magic Mechanic shows that we did back in 2001.
Wow.
And I had an old cassette player in my office, and I sat there and I played it back, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, wow. I said, the vehicles have changed so much, from the calls we were taking back then, in 2001. I mean, the program was only 10 years old, and now we're looking at 32 years, here in just a couple months. So it's like, wow, time has flew. I'm telling you. Hey, folks, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your automotive question, and, it's pretty pricey, free, as they say. I think Chris Crawford used to say free 99. So all you got to do is give us a ring, 844-580-WDBO. And if you'd like, you can do it the other way, 844-580-9326. Go ahead and give us a ring. We'll get to you before the end of the program. Also, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel, so other folks will be able to hear our conversation about a particular car problem, and they may find the same help that you may seek or want to discuss. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. The number is 844-580-9326. And if you'd like, you can give us a call at the shop at 407-629-2661. If nobody answers it, you can leave a message and we'll get back in touch with you. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the program. We all pitch in financially to bring you this show every week. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery, interior, convertible tops, carpet seats, whether it be on a car, truck, a SUV, a boat, a motorcycle, an ATV, anything that's got a seat or any type of upholstery, they take care of it for you. Maybe you're in the middle of an old restoration, need door panels redone or something along those lines. We're pretty lucky to have Orlando Auto Upholstery here in town. Because folks send literally seats and door panels and stuff to them from all over the United States. So these artesian type of trades are literally there's not one on every street corner. So if you need them, they're there. You can give them a holler at 407-898-2351 or visit them at OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, anything with an internal combustion motor and a transmission of any sort. They make a lubricant for it. Bottom line is, folks, if you want an oil that is actually going to preserve your engine and prevent it from wearing, then there's really nothing else you can use. You can go to a quick lube and keep your fingers crossed. The oil they put in there is only to get you to the next oil change. It does absolutely nothing as far as preventing wear. The engine's still going to die a normal death, and it only lasts so long with conventional and semi-synthetics and these wannabe synthetic oils that are out there on the market. If you truly want a vehicle to last as long as you want it to last, you almost have to use the AMSOIL synthetics. If you don't, like I said, it's just a normal wear thing that takes place. If you buy a used car, the first thing you want to do, I don't care, if it runs and still performs okay and it's not blowing smoke out of the tailpipe, because it's wore out, if you take a used car like that and you go ahead and you convert it over to AMSOIL, you pretty much have eliminated future wear in the engine as long as you use the AMSOIL in it. And folks, that's the reason AMSOIL actually warranties your engine against lubrication failure, because the only thing that can go wrong with a motor is something literally molten metal breaks into. And that's not a lubrication failure. That is a metal fatigue. Something like that can happen, but it's not something that happens commonly. It's very rare something like that happen. But as far as internal lubricated components, if you run AMSOIL in it, AMSOIL warranties your engine against a catastrophe, because they know once it's in your engine, you are not going to encounter any more what is considered normal wear. The engine will last pretty much as long as you want to keep the car. So kind of keep that in mind. If you want to find out more about AMSOIL, all you got to do is go to AMSOIL.com. And, AMSOIL has a site. You can go to AMSOIL.com. It will tell you what engine oil is recommended for your car and how much oil it holds. But folks, listen, I disagree with so many of these viscosities, and it's because of over 40 years of mechanical and engine building experience is the reason I take the stands that I do. I don't believe in these 20-weight oils, and I don't believe in 16-weight oils. And then, of course, they're trying to manufacture and talk you into using 8-weight oils. Stuff that I wouldn't put on my mountain bike bicycle chain. Think about that. That's what they want you to lubricate an engine with. That's just, we would call it vehicular homicide or mechanical homicide, because that's all it's going to do. If you want to find out more about AMSOIL, you can go to AMSOIL.com. Jasper Engines and Transmissions. When it comes time and you need a motor or transmission, and maybe a family car or a fleet vehicle, any sort like that, maybe you lost a transmission, you're trying to figure out your best bet. You can always go to some street corner transmission shop, have a tranny rebuilt by, Jed or whatever the guy is back there at the builder bench. But, when you leave there, you're probably going to have a 1-year warranty on it. The thing is, it's the same way with a motor. And I build specialty engines. If it's a 289 and a Mustang, they ain't nobody building those, so I hand build them. But when it comes to something like a 10-year-old pickup truck or something like that, you'd be crazy not to buy a Jasper, because they come with a 100,000-mile nationwide warranty, and that's parts and labor. So it's an investment in transportation. So if you got to replace a motor or transmission, I really do. I swear by the Jaspers, just because they're a very good product. We have very few issues out of any of their components, and the customer gets a great deal. You got basically a 100,000. You got a longer warranty on your engine in most cases than the car come with when it was brand new. So, you're not taking any chances whatsoever. It's good value for our customers. To find out more about Jasper Engines and Transmissions, all you got to do is type in jasperengines.com. And, of course, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center located in Orlando, Florida. We do engines, transmissions, classic, antique restorations, mechanical restorations on just about any older vehicle, whether it be English Land Rovers or Corvettes or Camaros or Chevelles. We do a lot of resto mod work on a lot of that stuff, and we take care of all the newer vehicles as well. Suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and of course AMSOIL synthetic lubricants for everything. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com. email me directly, larry@magicmechanic.com, and you can always give us a ring at 407-629-2661. Who are we kicking the program off with, Mr.
Let's
Josh?
go ahead and kick John C. while he's down there on line 5. John C. is calling us about his 2017 Tucson. Brake light or nay? Go ahead, John.
Hi, good afternoon. I've had this Tucson. It has an intermittent brake light out warning on the dash. A couple years ago, I had a similar problem, and they said they replaced part of the wiring harness or the socket. I checked the bulb and driver's side, and it's lit, but it's dimmer than the passenger side. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Usually, John, when you have a bulb that isn't as bright as it should be, it's usually either one of two things. Either there's a bad connection or a weak ground. And a ground can be, well, it could be as simple as a ground going to the body. But then again, sometimes they have a lighting control module in the vehicle. And what it does is it will ground out the bulbs whenever you apply the brakes or whatever. And if it's got a control module, then my guess would probably be that might be what you're dealing with. Now, when to be replacing sockets, bulb sockets on a 2017 vehicle, that's a little bit, unusual. I mean, it's something that you would see maybe more on a 15 or 20-year-old vehicle as opposed to one that's, 4 or 5 years old, like in your case. Has the vehicle been in any type of an accident, rear collision of any sort?
No, not at all.
Okay. I'm going to say that now when they replaced the socket and the bulb back there for that tail light, was it better for a while or?
Oh, the passenger side still works fine. It's a problem is occurring now on the driver's side.
So you had a problem on the passenger side previously, and now you've got an issue on the driver's side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They said they replaced part of the wiring harness to resolve the issue, and they said something about a resistor in line went bad.
Okay. Well, you may be dealing with the exact same thing. Do you know if they replaced the whole taillight assembly when they had this issue?
No, they didn't. They said they replaced part of the wiring harness, which included the socket.
Yeah. I hate to say it, John. Maybe they just made some lousy ones, and you're just not getting good contact with the bulb. But either a bad connection or either a ground is usually what will cause you to have a low voltage situation or a dim light like that. And it may need exactly what was done on the other side. On something like that, I really couldn't tell you 100% unless I actually seen it. But it's not a big deal. I mean, pull the tail light out of it, look at the socket and the wiring going to it, and probably go ahead and take a quick look at what they wired in on the other side. See, sometimes you'll have one ground for both of those taillights, and if they just use like a butt connector, crimp, or something like that, sometimes those connections will deteriorate. Your best bet is to always solder the wiring that you put into a harness like that on any vehicle, and then, of course, pull heat shrink over top of it and heat it up, and that way it secures and prevents any, future shorting or anything. But a lot of technicians will just take a shortcut and just butt connect, a new wire or something like it into a car, and usually that'll create a problem. So that's the reason I say the best bet would probably be to pull the one tail light out that's previously been repaired, and then take a quick look and see if there is anything with a ground where they've actually added the wiring in on that side. And if it looks good, fine, but then go ahead and pull the tail light out of the other one and take a look at it. Hey, we appreciate your call, John. I hope that helps you.
You want to hop on the air with Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic, talk about your car, your truck, and the issues going along with it. The number to call is 844-580-9326. 844-580-WDBO. Let's head over to St. Cloud, where Steve's got a question about his pre-millennial Camry. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I got a 99 Camry, and first problem is that the passenger side coolant fan, as soon as I turn my key on, it runs, never shuts off. And when I make a left-hand turn or I push on the passenger side front door, all my doors unlock. Now I have put in a new ECM, and my relays, I have tested them with a relay buddy, and they all test good.
Okay.
Let me answer.
Now, what? Run the passenger door. What are you doing with it now?
Just sitting in the driver's seat. I can be sitting still. I can reach over and push on the door, and all my doors will unlock.
Okay. Well, if so, you're just basically just pushing on the door panel itself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, you've got a wiring issue somewhere on the inside of that door, and just that little bit of effort or movement is putting power to the actual door lock actuator for some reason or other. The best bet on something like that, I would take the door panel off and then take the switch in my hand and plug it into the harness and sit there and just move it around until I could actually see what was causing it to supply power. A lot of times over the years, when a car gets up in the age, just from opening and closing the door, you got to remember you've got wires that come through the cowling there into the door itself, so there's kind of a pinch area there. It's not severe, but over time, you can get wires that'll actually start breaking in two. Hopefully it's not in that pinch area. Hopefully it's just something that's, inside the door there. But taking the panel off and just plugging the actual door, the passenger side door lock switch in there and messing around with it, moving the harness around. Once you start getting that symptom to occur all the time, you should be able to trace the wiring down and see just exactly where the it's not really a short. What you got, this blowing fuses, what you got is a power supply when it doesn't need it. It could be in the switch itself, the door lock switch, but I would think more along the lines of a wiring issue itself going to it. You won't be able to see or diagnose it until the door panel itself is removed. Did you need any? What else did you have going on with it, Steve?
No, the radiator fan on the passenger side, which would be the AC fan, as soon as I turn my key on, the fan comes on.
Okay. Well, if the AC is on, it's the one for the air conditioning, correct?
The AC's on or off. It doesn't matter. It's on all the time.
Okay. Well, either you've got a relay that is welded together, and I doubt that being the issue, because if the relay was welded together and you turn the car off, that fan would still run. I'm going to go with an AC fan control module, and that is most likely what is going bad on it to cause you to have power, the whole time that the vehicle is on. Those control modules, it's just a little box, little black box, and what will happen is when they get to the point where they start aging out and having issues, it'll ground that fan to run all the time. So I would, best thing to do is pull up a wiring schematic, and you can actually follow the power, all the possibilities of where the power supply is actually coming from to power up the fan itself. We're going to have a break here at the bottom of the hour. I hope that helps you, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Steve. That opens up a line for you, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Speaking of that app, right there in our WDBO app, free in the App Store and Play Store, there's an option to send us an open mic. And Larry just loves giving his audience a chance to ask their question any way they seem fit. So if you can't sit on hold for a little bit and wait to talk to him live, you can send us an open mic, and we'll get to those, right about now. What do you say, Larry?
Let's go to work.
All right, here comes open mic number one.
Larry, hopefully I'm still on at 435. I'm looking at a 2007 Tahoe. It is in perfect condition, retired Oakland Cobb and a marine, and the car is absolutely immaculate, but it does have 165,000 miles on it, and I hear these things go only 200,000. Now, I do Magic Mechanic AMSOIL from stem to stern. Help me out.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If it's running and driving out good now, you may be able to double the mileage on it with AMSOIL in it. Let's look at it like this. There's one thing that I do want to mention on those 5.3 motors. The driver's side valve cover. I know that sounds kind of silly. If it's not been replaced, you need to ask the previous owner if it's been replaced. There's an updated valve cover for that, and what it does is it prevents the crankcase vent system from actually sucking oil out of the motor. A lot of those, especially that vintage from the factory, they had a little bit of a design flaw in the valve cover itself, the actual aluminum cover. And what would happen is it would allow it to scavenge oil right out of your engine, and replacing, because it was common for those to have an oil consumption problem. And by replacing that valve cover, it would either reduce or eliminate oil consumption on the motor. So you may want to go ahead and AMSOIL everything and then just keep a real close eye on it. If you notice that you're using a little bit of oil, you need to find out if that valve cover's been replaced or not. If it hasn't, we need to get an updated valve cover for it, and that'll take care of it. Other than that, if the motor's good and quiet and it runs good, the transmission's working correctly, that's a 4L60E transmission in that thing. It's a good transmission, but, with the miles it's on it, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't beg for attention in the near future. But motor-wise, if it's been well maintained and you put a good weight of AMSOIL in it, wow, the sky's the limit. But just keep in mind that left valve cover, driver's side valve cover, may need to be replaced. Thank you for dropping off the open mic for us.
Thank you so much. Feel free to send us an open mic in the WDBO app. Open mic number 2 coming right up.
I would like to know what you think of the 2010 Chevy Malibu LXT. I have an opportunity to buy one.
It would depend on what engine is in it. Those could have come with a 4 or a V6 motor in it. Actually, the 4-cylinder motors that come in those, which is usually like a 2.4, I believe, they used it in a lot of different applications, Equinoxes, and you just about name it had that motor in it. Now, I will tell you this. Overall, it's not a bad engine, but there's a few things that you can run into issues with. One is, believe it or not, another valve cover issue. Valve covers on that one actually has the crankcase vent system integrated into it, and what will happen is the diaphragm in that crankcase vent system will go bad, and it'll suck the oil out of the motor. That's pretty bad. I mean, I think our last open mic was the same situation. So that is a problem thing that you run into with that on the 4-cylinder. The other one is timing chain issues. Once they get about 125,000 miles on them, it's common that the timing chain system will fail on it and has to be redone. And on those, when the chains go bad on them, it's common that they'll actually do some valve damage as well. So I would definitely have a pre-purchase inspection done on it by somebody that knows that car inside and out. And check the engine, and because there's a couple things there that could get you in trouble. Another one that we see a lot of on that car is the plastic cooling system fittings, thermostat housings and hose connectors and stuff like that are made out of plastic. We get these things towed in all the time for overheating, and it's usually something stupid like a piece of plastic that, in the cooling system that fails. It's not just that car, but it's just a lot of the newer vehicles use plastic in their cooling system configuration. And that stuff, when it gets 10 years old, you really need to think about replacing it, as opposed to letting something like that just fall apart and overheat your engine and kill the car. So those are all things. I think a pre-purchase inspection on it by somebody that has a clue, a good disinterested third party, would probably be advisable on that car before you just run out and buy it. I appreciate your open mic.
Thank you so much. As always, download the free WDBO app and send us an open mic whenever you see fit. We'll throw them on the air, 4:30 every Saturday afternoon. Let's head back to the phones where Ray has been waiting in Umatilla talking about his truck. Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, you sound a lot better this week.
Yeah, I'm still fighting it, Ray. I'm still fighting it.
Hey, I called you up about probably a month ago, maybe a little better than a month. It was before you went in that vacation thing where you went there with Christmas and New Year's.
Uh-huh.
It was just a little before that. And I had a transmission issue with a 2006 Dodge Ram. It went into limp mode, and you told me it could be the governor vacuum switch, but you told me to go ahead and have it scanned, and I did. And it said low voltage to the crap. It said low voltage down there in the transmission relay or something like that.
Okay.
And it gave me two codes. One's a PO 700. And the other one's a PO 882.
700 and an 882. All right. Well, I will tell you what. I don't know. I wish they would have had them on. I wish I'd have had those codes. All right. What was the first one?
First one was a PO 700.
And the second one?
And the second one was a PO 882. That governor vacuum switch would cause it to say low voltage, and it's got I put a brand spanking new battery in it, and everything. So,
well, listen. Let me tell you. Ray, it's all electronic and voltage issues with those codes. It could be the transmission control module. The first thing that I would probably check is where the wiring harness actually goes and plugs into the transmission itself. I would pull that connector apart and see if it is soaked with fluid. A lot of times what will happen is those connectors will allow fluid out of the transmission into the connector part of the wiring harness where it plugs in. And if that thing gets soaked and saturated with transmission fluid, it will cause you to have some issues, just exactly like you've got codes for. I would look there first. That's a common thing that we run into because those connectors are made out of plastic. Even the one that goes in through the transmission. It'll have an O-ring on the outside of it, but the actual plastic where it holds all the terminals in place, they'll start leaking fluid through it. And then it'll get into that connector, and when you get all that transmission fluid up in that electrical part, that's where you'll run into issues like it's describing code-wise. But let's pull that connector off of the transmission. Let's take a look at that. And in the meantime, if you see something with that, what will have to happen is you'll have to have an internal wiring harness put into the transmission itself if it's soaked with fluid. That's a very common thing. As a matter of fact, that's the first thing we would check on that particular truck. But pull it apart, see if it's soaked with fluid, and in the meantime, when you get a chance, go ahead and email me with that. So if there's anything else that comes up with it, or if that doesn't take care of it, or if you don't find anything with it, then maybe I can help you out a little more with it. I appreciate you holding on to talk to us today. I appreciate you calling in. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much, Ray. Let's head down to Orlando where John's got a question about his Subaru. Go ahead, John.
I heard the earlier conversation about the 020 and 016 in the newer cars. just bought a 2022 Subaru new. At the first oil change, I'm going to be switching over to AMSOIL.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about the 5W30. I look in the manual. They recommend 0-20 for the normally aspirated and 530 for the turbos. Mine's normally aspirated, but I don't see that they would have different tolerances in the two different types of engines.
No, you're 100% right. The clearances, if we were to plastic gauge the rod and main bearings, John, it would read the thickness, the plastic gauge would read exactly the same. The clearances are identical from the turbo motor to the naturally aspirated. It's the same thing. That's the reason, common sense has to come into play with these oil viscosities. And like I said, some of them, it just doesn't there's no rhyme or reason that they would recommend, such thin oils. If they had a situation to where, the northern vehicles, they wanted to use a thinner oil, I would not argue with that. I think a 20 weight oil would be fine if you lived in Arctic conditions. But in Central Florida and southern states, it's just not enough viscosity. Let me tell you what happens. You take a 20 weight oil and you put it into an engine here in Florida. What happens is, in probably the first 1,500 miles of use of that oil, the engine will get so hot that oil will start vaporizing. And when that oil vaporizes, it actually thickens up, believe it or not. Well, it doesn't just thicken up, it starts creating sludge and everything else, plus you've done cooked all the additive package completely out of the oil. There's nothing there to make it stable any longer. So, in essence, by taking a 20 weight oil and subjecting it into an engine here in Central Florida, what you will eventually do is cause that oil to thicken up and actually somewhat increase in viscosity because the oil cannot handle what you're using it for. So you're better off to use an oil like the AMSOIL, go up in viscosity. That way you've got something, not only is it going to keep parts separated, you're going to be in a situation to where it's not going to be boiling away because it wasn't stable enough to be used in there to start with. So in your case, a 0-30 is absolutely fine for your application. You can use a 530 and not have any consequences with it whatsoever. But due to the variable cam timing in these engines, I like to use a 0. That way we don't have any unattended camshaft activation, actuator activation during cold driving. So you either one to be fine, a 0-30 or a 530, but stay away from the 20 in that car if you want it to last you a long time.
Thank you so much, John. Louie, hang on through this break. We're going to wrap up the show with your question. You got a V8 Yukon with a spark plug issue. But if you're listening on the air right now and you realize the show is wrapping up, one more break left, about 10 minutes.